The scent of honeysuckle, sweet and heavy, drifted through the open window, carried on the gentle pre-dawn breeze. It was my favorite part of the day, these stolen moments before the world stirred. I'd often lie there, listening to the soft, rhythmic breathing beside me, a symphony of contentment. My wife, Clara, her hair a cascade of golden silk on the pillow, was the anchor of my world, the warm core around which my universe revolved. Our children, Leo and Maya, were the bright stars in that firmament, their laughter the most cherished sound. I was Thomas, the provider, the protector, the unwavering bedrock of our family. My kindness, my boundless generosity, my willingness to always put them first, these were not just principles, but the very essence of my being. And in those quiet mornings, I truly believed our bond was as unbreakable as the sunrise. My hand, calloused from years of work, would instinctively reach for hers, usually resting gently on the cool sheet. For years, her fingers would intertwine with mine, a silent affirmation of our connection. But lately, her hand would lie still, unresponsive. Sometimes, she would shift, ever so subtly, her body turning away, creating a chasm in the bed that felt as vast as the ocean. "My wife doesn't want to sleep with me anymore," the thought would whisper, a chilling premonition in the warmth of our shared room. I'd brush it off, attribute it to fatigue, stress, the silent wear and tear of 2 decades of marriage. I was naive, perhaps, but my heart was too full of love to entertain the notion of a deeper chill. This blissful ignorance, however, was about to be shattered. The first discordant note played weeks earlier, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor in the carefully constructed harmony of our lives. It was a Tuesday evening, family dinner night. I'd cooked Clara's favorite, homemade lasagna, bubbling with cheese. Leo, 17, was engrossed in his phone, barely looking up. Maya, 15, picked at her food, a sullen cloud hanging over her. "Anything interesting happen at school today, kids?" I asked, trying to inject some life into the quiet. Leo grunted. "Same old." Maya shrugged. "Fine." Clara, usually the one to bridge these silences, simply sipped her wine, her eyes distant. "Thomas, dear," she began, her voice cool, almost clinical. "The new investment portfolio you set up for the children, it's a bit conservative, isn't it?" I blinked. "Conservative? It's diversified, stable. Long-term growth. It's their future, Clara, not a casino." She chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Oh, Thomas. Always so careful. Sometimes you have to take risks to truly succeed." Her gaze held a strange glint, something I couldn't quite decipher then, but now recognize as veiled contempt. I dismissed it. Just a difference in financial philosophy. Clara always had a more adventurous spirit. What I didn't know was that these were not casual observations. These were carefully placed barbs, designed to chip away at my authority, to subtly paint me as weak and uninspired in the eyes of our children. For years, in my absence, Clara had curated a narrative of me. My kindness, which I considered my greatest strength, was framed as gullibility. My unwavering trust was spun as naivety. My tireless work ethic, which provided for every luxury they enjoyed, was portrayed as a desperate need for validation. "Your father means well," she'd say to Leo and Maya after I left for work, her voice dripping with condescension. "But he's easily swayed. He thinks everyone is as honest as he is. It's a weakness in this world, children. You must be smarter, tougher." She'd share exaggerated tales of my supposed blunders in business, small mistakes blown out of proportion, making me seem utterly incompetent. "He provides, yes," she'd concede, almost grudgingly. "But true power is in understanding how to use resources, not just create them." Leo, always striving for dominance, absorbed this poison readily. He saw my patience as indecision, my generosity as a sign of being easily exploited. Maya, more sensitive, was harder to sway, but the constant, insidious chipping away at my image, the subtle eye rolls and scoffing remarks from her mother, slowly eroded her affection. I was the reliable, predictable source of all good things, but beneath that veneer of provision, I was, to them, an object of polite derision. I never heard the dismissive laughter that followed my car pulling out of the driveway. Never witnessed the way Clara would preen after a particularly cutting remark about my sentimentality. My world was built on the unshakable belief in their love, a fortress too strong, I thought, for any doubt to penetrate. The subtle coldness in the bed, the unanswered hand, escalated. Clara began sleeping in the guest room. For better sleep. Our conversations dwindled to logistics and superficial pleasantries. The vibrant intimacy that had once defined our marriage faded into a desolate echo. My heart ached, a dull, constant throb of confusion and unspoken grief. I tried to bridge the gap. Flowers, surprise dinners, tickets to her favorite play. Each gesture was met with a polite, distant smile, or a mumbled, "You didn't have to." The silence in our home grew heavier, more suffocating. It was during one particularly sterile family dinner that the first real tremor hit me, a fissure in the foundation of my unwavering trust. I'd just secured a major deal, one that would double our company's valuation. "It's huge," I'd announced, beaming, looking from Clara to Leo to Maya. "This means we can finally start planning the trip to the Galapagos you've always wanted, Clara. And Leo, your dream of a new car, we can make that happen sooner. Maya, that art studio you've been sketching." Clara's smile was thin, almost predatory. "That's lovely, Thomas. But perhaps we have other plans for our future." The emphasis on "our" was chilling. Leo and Maya exchanged a quick, knowing glance, a conspiratorial flicker in their eyes that sliced through my celebratory mood. It wasn't the joy I expected, but a chilling sense of quiet anticipation, as if my announcement merely confirmed a piece of their hidden puzzle. The next day, a casual conversation with my old friend, Michael, a respected financial advisor, brought another jolt. "Funny," Michael said. "I bumped into Clara at the golf club the other day. She was asking some very pointed questions about asset protection and marital dissolution. Said she was researching for a friend." His voice was light, but my blood ran cold. Marital dissolution. The phrase hung in the air, heavy and sharp. The fragments began to connect. The coldness in the bed, the increasingly distant children, Clara's subtle undermining, Michael's unsettling revelation. A bitter suspicion began to fester in the hollow space where my heart used to beat with unwavering love. I wasn't just being pushed away. I was being set up. My first instinct was denial, then a crushing wave of despair. The realization that the people I had given my life to, the very essence of my existence, were actively plotting against me was a spiritual crucifixion. I spent a week in a fog, going through the motions, a phantom in my own home. I watched them, their casual disregard, their smug self-satisfaction. Clara, on the phone, her voice low, hushed. Leo and Maya, whispering secrets in corners, their laughter devoid of genuine warmth. I was a ghost, haunting the ruins of my family. But then a flicker. A tiny spark of resolve ignited in the darkness. I had built empires from nothing. I had navigated treacherous markets. I was not weak. My kindness was not a flaw, it was a choice. And it would not be mistaken for surrender. My heart might be shattered, but my mind was sharper than ever. I would not succumb to bitterness. I would rise with dignity. My unexpected ally came in the form of Evelyn. Evelyn Hayes. Clara's closest confidant for years, a woman I had always known to be sharp, elegant, and fiercely loyal to her friends. We met at a charity gala, an event I almost skipped. Clara and the children were conspicuously absent, feigning illness. Evelyn found me nursing a whiskey by the bar, her expression unusually somber. "Thomas," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "we need to talk." "Not here. Not now." Her words sent a jolt through me. Evelyn. If anyone knew the truth, it would be her. She had been Helen's sounding board, her confessor. We arranged to meet the next day, in a discreet cafe far from prying eyes. What Evelyn revealed shattered the last vestiges of my illusions, rebuilding them into a mosaic of betrayal and calculated malice. She spoke of Clara's long-standing contempt, rooted in a perceived lack of ambition. In me, a man content with providing stability rather than endless risk. She detailed years of Clara's systematic emotional manipulation of Leo and Maya, twisting my virtues into vices, cultivating their resentment. "She called you the soft touch, Thomas," Evelyn said, her voice laced with pain. "She told them you were too naive to manage true wealth, that you'd squander it, and that they needed to protect their inheritance from your gentle nature." Then came the chilling revelation. Clara had been meticulously planning to strip me bare. They were not just taking the company. They intended to frame me for financial mismanagement, to discredit me entirely, leaving me not just assetless, but reputationless. It was a complete annihilation. "They're moving fast now," Evelyn warned, her eyes filled with a desperate urgency. "Clara's already contacted her lawyers to draft papers. They're going for full control, full disinheritance. She thinks you won't fight. She thinks you'll just crumble." And then, a second twist, one that made my shattered heart ache with a strange, bittersweet ache. Evelyn confessed, her voice trembling, her eyes meeting mine with a vulnerability that took my breath away. "Thomas, I know this sounds insane, given everything, but I couldn't stand by and watch. I've always loved you. Not like Clara. Not for your money or your status. For your kindness. For your integrity. I tried to warn her, tried to make her see what she had. But she was blind. I couldn't betray you too. This is my way of trying to make things right. My only way." Her confession hung in the air, a stunning, illogical, yet profoundly comforting revelation. Her unrequited love, a silent, powerful force, had been her compass, her unwavering motivation to help me. And in that moment, facing the wreckage of my entire life, her honesty was a beacon in the storm. It wasn't about reciprocation, not then. It was about recognizing a genuine soul in a sea of deceit. "We need a plan, Evelyn," I said, my voice steady, surprising even myself. "A quiet one. A precise one. They're about to make their move. Let them think they've won." The next few months were a blur of cold, calculated preparation. No grand confrontations, no furious outbursts. I became a ghost in my own life, moving silently, meticulously. My public appearances were minimal, my conversations with Clara and the children brief and guarded. They probably thought I was broken, licking my wounds in solitude, slowly fading into irrelevance. They had no idea I was quietly forging a new weapon, one built on their own arrogance and my previously underestimated foresight. Evelyn became my shadow, my strategist, my unwavering confidant. Her legal acumen, combined with her intimate knowledge of Clara's personality and her network, was invaluable. We gathered evidence, not just of their current machinations, but of the long-term pattern of Clara's disparagement and manipulation. We consulted with financial experts, unearthing the subtle shifts in asset allocation that had begun months prior, designed to slowly siphon funds from my grasp. We found discrepancies in their claims to investors, blatant exaggerations of their roles, outright lies about the new developments they were supposedly spearheading. Every piece of information was meticulously documented, notarized, and secured. The emotional toll was immense. Every piece of evidence felt like a fresh stab wound. The memory of Clara's warm laughter, Leo's playful banter, Maya's sweet drawings, all turned to ash. There were nights I stared at the ceiling, the silence deafening, the bitterness a tangible weight in my chest. But then I would think of Evelyn's quiet strength, her unwavering belief in justice, her gentle hand on my arm, and I would pull myself back from the brink. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about dignity. It was about reclaiming the man they thought they could destroy. The day came, not with a bang, but with a series of quiet, devastating ripples that cascaded into a tsunami of their own making. It began with a meticulously prepared, anonymous tip-off to a renowned investigative financial journalist known for exposing corporate malfeasance. The story broke, not as a sensational headline, but as a deeply researched exposé. The silent takeover, how a family patriarch was undermined by his own. It detailed the systematic emotional abuse, the calculated financial manipulations, the insidious psychological undermining. It cited anonymous, yet highly credible sources, including verbatim quotes from Clara's private boasts. The internet, ever hungry for drama, did the rest, turning their carefully crafted image into a public spectacle of greed and betrayal. The public outcry was immediate and furious. Investors began pulling out, demanding answers. Clients threatened lawsuits. The carefully constructed facade of their family's reputation, of their company's integrity, began to crumble under the weight of intense scrutiny. Then came the legal maneuvers. Not a direct lawsuit from me, not yet. First, a series of precisely timed, legally binding injunctions. A temporary restraining order on the family trust they had just attempted to secretly restructure, citing potential elder abuse and financial fraud. A freeze on specific company assets, pending an independent audit. Each document was delivered with quiet efficiency, signed by Evelyn, whose reputation as a relentless litigator preceded her. Clara, Leo, and Maya found themselves trapped in a web of their own making. Their investors were demanding answers, their clients were abandoning them, and their legal team was suddenly facing a mountain of irrefutable, publicly visible evidence. The public confrontation happened not in a courtroom, but in a live, televised interview on a national morning show, following the viral spread of the investigative piece. Clara and the children were invited to clarify the situation. I was invited as a surprise, last-minute guest, an unannounced addition to the segment. They knew I was there. They just didn't know why. The moderator, a sharp, unblinking woman with a reputation for merciless interviews, introduced me. And joining us now, Mr. Thomas Vance, co-founder and former CEO of Vance Innovations, and the central figure in this unfolding family saga. I took my seat, acknowledging the silent stares of Clara, Leo, and Maya. Their faces were a mixture of strained bravado, panic, and raw fear. My expression was calm, composed, devoid of any anger or triumph. The questions began. They danced around the recent controversies, the rumors of internal strife. Clara, usually so articulate, stumbled over her words, muttering about misunderstandings and private family matters. Leo looked down at his hands, his face pale. Maya mumbled about creative differences. Then the moderator turned to me, her gaze piercing. Mr. Vance, there have been some extraordinary allegations. The article suggests a deliberate attempt to undermine you, both personally and professionally. As the patriarch, perhaps you could shed some light on the true nature of your family's recent decisions? I took a breath, letting the silence expand, allowing the weight of the moment to settle. My voice was clear, measured, betraying no emotion, yet imbued with an undeniable gravitas. Family, at its core, is about love. It's about trust and mutual respect. It's about building something together with integrity. I paused, my gaze sweeping over Clara, Leo, and Maya, holding each of them in a silent, unyielding stare. When that trust is systematically eroded, when a partner's devotion is mistaken for weakness, when children are manipulated to despise the very hand that nurtured them, and when meticulous plans are hatched to strip someone of their life's work and dignity, well, then what you have isn't a family. It's simply a hostile takeover. I held up a slender, encrypted flash drive, its surface catching the studio lights. All the authenticated documentation, the psychological evaluations detailing the parental alienation, the forensic audits of financial manipulations, the internal communications outlining the planned exile and discrediting of my character is on this drive. It's also with my legal team, the financial regulatory authorities, and the relevant child protection services, given the extent of the emotional abuse and manipulation. The color drained from their faces. Clara's carefully applied composure crumbled. Leo stared at me, his jaw slack, the years of his mother's poisonous words colliding with the stark reality of their consequences. Maya gasped, a raw, wounded sound, tears welling in her eyes, finally seeing the man her mother had painted as a villain standing before her as a victim of their calculated cruelty. I believed in unconditional love, I continued, my voice gaining a quiet power that filled the studio. I believed in nurturing and providing a shield from the harshness of the world. They, in their arrogance, believed my kindness was a vulnerability they could exploit. They underestimated the quiet strength forged in genuine dedication. They thought they could simply take what was mine, not just financially, but my very essence. But some things cannot be taken. They can only be earned. And some bonds, once broken by such profound betrayal, can never be mended. The moderator, visibly shaken, ended the segment abruptly. Clara, Leo, and Maya sat frozen, caught in the headlights of their own undoing, their carefully constructed facade collapsing into a public spectacle of shame. The legal battles that followed were swift and decisive. With the public opinion against them, and the irrefutable evidence Evelyn had meticulously compiled, they had no ground to stand on. Clara was left with nothing, her reputation shattered, facing serious legal repercussions for fraud and emotional manipulation. Leo, facing the consequences of his complicity, was forced to confront the depth of his mother's deception and his own participation in it. Maya, however, was granted a path. Her portion of the trust, held in abeyance, was contingent on extensive counseling and a genuine effort to reconcile with me, to understand the truth. She eventually chose that path. In the quiet aftermath, my life, rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal, was simpler, more authentic. I returned to my work, not with anger, but with a renewed sense of purpose, focusing on ethical innovation and genuine partnerships. And Evelyn? She became more than an ally, more than a friend. We built a new life, grounded in honesty, unwavering trust, and a quiet, profound love that had blossomed in the most unexpected of circumstances. My victory wasn't born of fury or a desire for their suffering. It was born of dignity, of reclaiming what was rightfully mine, not just financially, but my peace of mind, my self-respect, and my belief in the inherent good of people, even after facing its most bitter opposite. It was the quiet, profound satisfaction of seeing justice served, not through rage, but through unwavering, strategic resolve. The bed was no longer empty. It was filled with true companionship, a testament that kindness, when combined with quiet strength, was never weakness. It was, in fact, the greatest power of all.